Welcome to the August 14th, 2023 meeting of the Sandusky City Commission. We'll have an invocation offered by Commissioner Murray, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening. Gracious God, thank you for the gift of free will. But we ask that you give to us with that the wisdom to discern your will, the wisdom to discern the will of others in our community, and the grace with which to carry this free will. It is an awesome burden that you've given us, but we appreciate it and thank you. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Myers, will you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Brady?
Here.
Mr. Bajali?
Here.
Mr. Waddington? Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Meinzer?
Here.
Mr. Poole?
Here.
Mr. Murray?
Here.
Commissioners, you have before you the minutes of our meetings of July the 24th, July the 31st, and August the 7th. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Waddington.
move that we accept the minutes of the July 24th, July 31st, and August 7th meeting and dispense with the formal reading.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Without objection, that motion will be approved, and hearing no objection, those minutes are approved. Any residents with comments regarding tonight's agenda, please step to the podium and share with us your name and address and your agenda comments. Seeing no one rushing to the podium, we'll move to a proclamation that's going to be delivered by Commissioner Harris on drive sober or get pulled over.
Thank you. Whereas from August 16th through September 4th, 2023, law enforcement nationwide will be joining the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration in the High Visibility Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over campaign. And whereas officers in the Sandusky Police Department will show zero tolerance for drunk driving, and whereas although it is illegal in all 50 states, the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico to drive drunk, having a blood alcohol concentration of 0.80 or higher, far too many people across the nation get behind the wheel after consuming too much alcohol. And whereas every year, more than 38% of all motor vehicle traffic deaths involve drivers who were drunk, and holidays like Labor Day are particularly dangerous. And whereas drunk driving takes a particularly heavy toll among young drivers, and whereas research has shown that high visibility enforcement like the Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over campaign reduces drunk driving fatalities by as much as 20%, and by joining this nationwide effort, Sandusky's roadways will be made safer for everyone throughout the Labor Day period. And whereas the Sandusky Police Department wants to remind everyone getting behind the wheel drunk is a terrible idea, and it impairs your ability to operate a vehicle safely, impairs your judgment and good sense about whether you can or should drive. And whereas driving drunk is simply not worth the risk. Now, therefore, I, Blake Harris of the Sandusky City Commission, do hereby proclaim and announce August 16th through September 4th, 2023 as Don't Pay, Enjoy the Labor Day Holiday, Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Commissioners, you have before you several communications from staff recommending various pieces of legislation. Can I have a motion to accept these communications?
Second.
A motion and a second discussion. Without objection, that motion will be approved, and hearing no objection, that motion is approved. Commissioners, we have two items on the consent agenda this evening. Do any of you wish to move either of those items to the regular agenda? Ms. Myers, will you present the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. President. Item A, approval of land bank purchase and sale agreement for 1716 Sadler Street. Item B, approval of land bank purchase and sale agreement for 3rd Street lots.
Commissioners, having heard these ordinances, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Murray.
I move for the approval of these ordinances pursuant to Section 14 of the city's charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Myers, will you call a roll on that motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Bajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinances?
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Those ordinances are passed. We'll move to our regular agenda. Ms. Myers, you present item 1, ordinance number 1.
It is requested an ordinance be passed providing for the issuance and sale of notes in an aggregate principal not to exceed $10 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying costs of the construction, renovation, furnishing, and equipping of the City Justice Center and declaring an emergency.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Meiser.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance in full accordance with Section 14, City Charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Myers, you call a roll on that motion?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you will present ordinance number 2 of item number 1.
It is requested an ordinance be passed providing for the issuance and sale of $2,270,000 notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of, 1, paying the costs of various improvements for the landing as more further described and approved in ordinance number 18-127, 2, paying costs of various improvements to Jackson Street Pier, and 3, paying costs of the construction of and various improvements to the Sandusky Bay Pathway and declaring an emergency.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
I
Meiser.
move for the adoption of this ordinance in full accordance with Section 14, City Charter.
Second.
And a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Myers, you call a roll on that motion, please.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 2, please.
Commission President, before we move on, we should have an approval of the fiscal officer's certificates.
I'll ask for a motion to approve the fiscal officer's certificate.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Myers, you call a roll on that motion?
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That motion is passed and our fiscal officer is approved. Back to where we were.
It is
Item number 2.
Number 2, it is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing and approving a grant in the amount of $1 million through the Economic Development Fund Program to Sandusky State Theater Incorporated in relation to the property located at 107 Columbus Avenue and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the City Charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Waddington.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the City Charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Murray.
I support this grant to the State Theater. It was part of the deal that we made with Cedar Point when we expanded the admission tax and added the parking tax. But I also support it for the simple reason that the restoration of the State Theater is fundamentally about economic development. It is a real driver for revenues and visitors to this city, and I think it's something that's very important that we support, and I appreciate the fact that it's on our agenda tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Additional comments, Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to point out that $500,000 is due in 14 days, and the rest will be due upon completion of the project.
Thank you, Mr. Meiser.
That's correct. Completion of project is at the end.
Who knows the answer to that? Mr.
I'm sure
Orzak?
that's what it is.
Yes,
I wasn't sure. I thought that's what it was.
That's correct.
Just wanted to verify.
The first payment will be 14 days after the approval. If it gets approved, then the rest will be at the completion of the project. And they have until December 31st of 2024 to finish that project, but we anticipate with bated breath that it'll be done much sooner than that.
The last of our money is the last money in other words. Good deal. Additional comments, Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Poole?
I also agree that this is a good project that we do want to. I agree with everything Mr. Murray said with regard to the importance of getting that building back up to snuff. I do think between now and the time it's done, it would be nice for our investments if we knew what was going on. As I read through this document, it's pretty much blank, other than that they're going to fix the building, but it would be nice to get some updates between now and the time it's done of what they're doing, what the public can expect to see when it's completed, not just the building, but what they're going to do with the State Theater. So every 6-8 weeks or so, it would be nice if we got that. But otherwise, our small investment in this large of a project is well worth the money we're putting into it.
Additional comments, Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Meiser?
I see Mr. Parthmore in the audience, and I'm sure he didn't just come to watch. He probably might want to speak, but I see insurance was for $18 million. I think the project is projected at $30 million. Do you want to speak to how you might try to get foundations to contribute to cover that gap?
Mr. Parthmore?
Thank you for having me tonight and considering this. You're correct, $18 million is insurance. We've received $1 million gifts from several of the foundations and business partners in town and even an individual, and we are currently still raising money, but close to the finish line.
Completion.
To Commissioner's Poole point, I would again encourage anybody to come in, take a tour. I'd love to show you the progress. I know some of you have been in already, but you're always welcome. Just get in touch with me, and I'd love to show you the project.
I've taken that tour about 3 or 4 months ago, and I'm sure the difference between then and now is dramatic. So I would encourage all of you, Mr. Parthmore is extending that opportunity to all of us. I'd encourage you to take advantage of that. It is truly breathtaking. Additional questions or comments, Commissioner?
Mr. President, if I could just add, I know that the state also received $3 million in funding from the federal government as well, so the federal government has some buy-in with the project and thought it was well worth contributing to, so there was a substantial amount that I wanted to make sure got put on the record.
Very substantial. Mr. Pajali?
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, is the estimated cost 30 or 35 million?
It's 35,
35, okay.
which is inflationary, but below the rate of inflation. So we've done pretty well.
Yeah, I had read that somewhere, and I just wanted to make sure that was the correct amount.
Completion date, Mr. Parthmore, and I know it's a moving target. I won't hold you to it, but
Less than a
give us
year.
something to point to.
Less than a year.
Okay. Hold you to that.
That's fine.
Ms. Myers, do you call roll on that motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance?
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 3.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing approving a grant in the amount of $250,000 to the Library Association of Sandusky, Ohio, in relation to the property located at 114 West Adams Street, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the City Charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Meiser?
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under Section 14 of the City Charter.
Second.
On a motion and a second discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Murray?
So we get asked this question quite a bit about what happened to change Sandusky's trajectory. And I could have as easily made this comment about the last piece of legislation that we had in front of us. But there have been a lot of people who have waited for a long time for the moment that we're experiencing now. Well, it's not a moment, it's a decade at this point. But it's been a long time. It was a long time coming. And people ask why. Well, there are lots of reasons, of course. They're the voters who believed in themselves and stepped up, and when it came to issue 8, they voted yes. They're the many homeowners who invested in their homes. There are many businesses who have made substantial investments here. There are partnerships that we have with many of the great institutions and businesses in town. But there's another piece that we sometimes overlook. And that's the contributions made in the past, whether it's Carnegie, who provided the original money for this particular library, it's a beautiful library, or whether it's been the Ruth Parkers and the George Mylanders and the Ellie Doms and so many other people who worked to make sure that we had these precious assets preserved, and they would be ready for this moment when we could take full advantage of them and showcase our town to the entire region. I was speaking just yesterday with someone from Cleveland who was saying they just read so many great things about Sandusky these days. They're very proud to be from Huron because it was close to Huron. I'm close to Sandusky. So I just think when we look at the reasons for our success and we look at investments in these beautiful buildings we have that really define the built structure of our community, we really need to keep in mind that there were many people who worked very hard to make sure this day would come. They didn't live, most of them, to see it, but I think they'd be pretty proud to be able to see what we have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. I've oftentimes thought of, it's interesting that we've got the State Theater in one piece of legislation and the library in another one, because I've often looked at the library and the State Theater kind of as bookends at both ends of our downtown, and they certainly have contributed in very similar fashion. I think about the number of young people that have benefited from the State Theater and attended shows there, attended graduations there, attended dance recitals there. And then I think of the unbelievable number of people, young people that have spent thousands and thousands of hours in the Sandusky Library, getting the roots of their education there, and certainly in reading. So bookends is how I look at it, and I don't think we could have finer institutions at the foot of Columbus Avenue and the other end of Columbus Avenue. So I'm sure glad you're here, and I'm sure glad that we can extend these amount of dollars. Additional comments, Commissioners? Ms. Myers, you call a roll on the motion, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 4, please.
It is requested a resolution be passed declaring the necessity for the city to proceed with the proposed CDBG fiscal year 21 demolition project number 6, directing the city manager to advertise for and receive bids in relation thereto, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this resolution, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Waddington.
I move for the adoption of this resolution under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion. Ms. Myers, you call a roll on that motion, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the resolution.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That resolution is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 5, please.
It is requested a resolution be passed declaring the necessity for the city to proceed with the proposed CDBG fiscal year 21 demolition project number 7, directing the city manager to advertise for and receive bids in relation thereto, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this resolution, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Harris.
I move for the adoption of this resolution under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion. Ms. Myers, you call a roll on that motion, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the resolution.
Mr. Brady? Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That resolution is passed. Mrs. Myers, you present item number 6, please.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing and directing the city manager to purchase 9 vehicles from National Auto Fleet Group of Watsonville, California, through the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program for various city departments and divisions, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman, I move for the adoption of this ordinance, I'm sorry,
Mr. Meisner.
in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Mr. Orzak, do we have any chance of ever receiving these vehicles that we're attempting to purchase?
We have a better chance of receiving these than we are with our cruisers. Chief Oliver can probably expand on it, but the 6 cruisers that we ordered this year, we're having difficulty getting. Some of our cruisers are pushing 200, well, one of them's over 200,000 miles, and the other ones are pushing 180 and 190. We're going to try to reach out to some of our federal partners and see if there's any way. I know the Buckeyes Sheriff Association and the Chiefs of Police have expressed their concern, and it's a statewide, national, and a national problem, not just our problem, but the dealership that we had ordered the 6 cruisers from placed 950 cruisers on order, and they only received 48 of them, and we're getting some feedback that we probably aren't going to get those. We've been up, the chief and Troy have been updating those as information as quickly as possible, but we're in a desperate situation for cruisers. But I think that these vehicles that are like standardized we'll probably get.
Chief, do we have a backup plan?
Well, our only backup plan right now, Commission President, is looking forward to 24 and getting on the pre-order side for some other vehicles. But this dealership that has the state contract for these vehicles has been told they'll get 600 of them, and they're already pre-ordered 500 of those. So, and you know, reaching out to the federal partners, it's always available. This is national, though. It started out as supply chain issues, which led to other things, and most recently Ford doesn't have the computer chips. So what they've built, and that's kind of where we stand. So we're doing everything we can. Troy's great to work with. The city manager's given us, you know, the flexibility to do what we need to do. It's no sooner does a car make it to the lot, some other bigger city or township or municipality purchases it and it's gone. So
We don't have the luxury of having police departments across the country go out of business and buy their fleets, do we? I mean,
we do. We do not, unfortunately. And
it's not the real world anymore.
if it was that way, there'd be some other department that already has an order in for those used vehicles too. I mean, we're just in line.
Okay.
And we have several cars getting up there in mileage, so we'll adjust the best we can, but that's kind of where we're at. And the 24, as I was told a few days ago, will be 6 to 8 months for manufacturing too, even when we get into the pre-order side.
Yeah. Wow.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Murray.
Just first a question and then a comment. Question for the chief. To get on what you referred to as the pre-order, does that require any action of this body?
I think you'll see a communication from me pretty soon, but the pre-order we're already sort of in line for because I talked to the representative. And again, I knew it was a state contract, and that was just a matter of sending an email. Please put us in reservation, put us in the queue, basically.
Okay, well, thank you. And then the comment is that I find it a little suspicious that the manufacturers are telling us that they don't have enough chips. They have enough chips to crank out all sorts of high-margin, high-profit SUVs, and yet they don't have the chips to sell and prepare police vehicles, which are typically low-margin because they're sold pursuant to state purchasing contracts, much like we participate in. So I'm a little cynical about it, and I would appreciate knowing if this experience, apparently it is universal, and if so, I would like to take it up with our federal representatives to point out this issue to them. I'm imagining that they're probably already aware of it, but I think that they do have the ability to lean on the manufacturers and say, you need to do your part for public safety, because they're not. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Murray.
Just to echo Mr. Murray, if I remember, the vehicles we approved the funding for were in the neighborhood of 27,000, something like that for SUVs, is that?
Originally, sir, and then this most recent purchase where we went to 6, it was upwards of 43,000 a vehicle.
That's what I was wondering. So it wasn't binding, going through the state contract that we would get the 27,000, or that's just?
No, sir. The original communication, I think we're going back 2 years ago.
Oh, that's okay.
For 3 vehicles, and that was the state contract price then.
Okay.
Last year was 43,000. Going forward, I was told it was upwards of 48,000, depending. And to your point, Commissioner Murray, I mean, that was Ford's statement, whatever accuracy there is, but Dodge Durangos are gone. So then we look at Chevy Tahoes. Chevy Tahoes are bought up. I mean, it's really just a matter of what vehicle's out there, and you just have to adapt and try to get to that vehicle next and that vehicle, and we're going to continue trying. Our fleet is Ford Explorers and Impalas, and the Impalas are a thing of the past, so we were trying to get all the way over to Ford Explorers. That's where the Ford computer chip came up.
Maybe Teslas.
Only you would think of that. Mr. Myers, you call the roll on that motion, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Bajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Bajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. Ms. Myers, you present item number 7, please.
It is requested an ordinance be passed authorizing and directing the city manager to accept grant funds in the amount of $11,759.97 from the Ohio Department of Public Safety, Office of Criminal Justice Services through the 2023 Body-Worn Camera Grant Program, authorizing the city manager to execute any grant agreements, and authorizing and directing the city manager to expend funds to Axon Enterprise Incorporated of Scottsdale, Arizona, for the purchase of 5 body-worn cameras for the police department, and declaring that this ordinance shall take immediate effect in accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Commissioners, having heard this ordinance, how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Waddington.
I move for the adoption of this ordinance under suspension of the rules in full accordance with Section 14 of the city charter.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion. Ms. Myers, you call the roll on that motion, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Bajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
And now on the ordinance.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Bajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That ordinance is passed. That concludes our regular agenda. We'll turn to our city manager for his report.
Good evening, Commissioners, audience, and staff. The first, I have a donation for the Sandusky Rec Department. It's from Carl and Ann McGookie, a donation of $150 for the scholarship fund. If I can get a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Without objection, the motion will be approved. Hearing no objection, that motion is approved with our thanks to the Mogookies.
And then, as everyone knows, we had quite a storm in the area on Saturday. And so there's been a few questions from citizens. So just to put out there so that everybody knows, the trees that fell in the parks or public spaces, along with any of the boulevard trees and branches, will be processed and taken up by our staff. Any trees that are on public or private property, backyards and things like that, citizens will have to have that addressed on their own, but we will take care of all the boulevard and those trees that are in the public space. Additionally, we put out some information on social media, but the Oakland Cemetery got hit pretty good in some spots, so there's some trees down there. The staff's working diligently on getting those trees removed so that people can visit there, so just so the public's aware. And then if I could get a motion, Dr. Marcia Cooper had resigned from the Erie County Health Department Board earlier this year, and I'd like to get a motion to affirm Elizabeth Klaus. Her term would go through December 31st of 2025. If I can get a motion.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second discussion. Ms. Myers, you call a roll on that motion, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Bajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That motion is passed, and our thanks to Ms. Gus for agreeing to serve.
And then from the Fire Department, on July 28th, Sandusky Fire applied for a grant through the Erie County Community Foundation to purchase lock boxes for elderly residents' homes. The total amount requested in the grant was $3,650 with no matching city funds. The application for the grant expired August 1st, so ratification will be filed for formal permission from the commission at the August 28th meeting. And Public Works, the county's engineer's office is replacing the bridge on East Perkins Ave. That's just along Pipe Creek there. The road will be closed until work is completed, which is anticipated through December. Replacement of the city's water line that was on the bridge was completed prior to the bridge closure. Then Warren Street work begins Monday, August 21st at the northernmost end of the project between Water and Market. Underground work will begin as utilities need tied into Water Street. These elements of work are always the slowest, and throughout the Warren Street project, shallow bedrock is anticipated, compounding how slow this work may happen. Former home to 3+ sets of train tracks, the Warren Street project includes replacement of a 91-year-old water main and over 40-year-old roadway. The city previously lined the 115-year-old reinforced concrete sewer here that will act as the sanitary sewer system and is adding a separate storm sewer system. Finally, this project will add a spur off the Sandusky Bay pathway, which will connect Huron Park to Shoreline Park. The Perkins Avenue road work progress eastward as new water main line is installed to Campbell Street with temporary line work heads towards Columbus. So there's a little bit of a mess in that area. You can go east, but west is a little troubling. The water line work wraps up. Concrete and paving crews follow behind, addressing driveways, curbs, and sidewalks as necessary. Paving of the roadway will be the last work in order of sequence, and we have had communication with the schools about the transportation. We're having meetings scheduled with the chief and Public Works to make sure that the issues at the school get addressed before the kids start back. And then the Healthy Hayes Avenue work commences approximately August 23rd with concrete work, limited drives, curbs, sidewalk, and ADA ramps. New poles and pedestrian signals are slated for October, and that work is from 5 Points to Perkins Ave. Then Monroe Street work begins approximately August 30th with concrete work, limited drives, curbs, sidewalks, and ADA ramps. Paving to follow in September. I guess Mr. Klein didn't want all of that on his plate. That's why he's not here. But we have a full agenda next commission meeting, so make sure you get your rest because all the public works stuff's coming. And then finally, for the recreation, the fall City of Sandusky Cleanup Day will be Saturday, September 23rd from 8 to 11 a.m. It will be held at Shelby Street Boat Launch Overflow Parking Lot. This is open to City of Sandusky residents only with a photo ID. And that concludes my report for this evening. Take any questions if you have them.
Mr. Rozak, I noticed that since you've become our permanent city manager, your report seems a little longer to me now. Is that just my imagination?
Mr. Klein left for the evening, so he didn't care how long the report was. So.
I held it out. Great. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the city manager? No questions. They're letting you off easy.
Yeah.
Items of old business. Any items of old business, Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I would just comment on the one land acquisition. You know, I hear a lot about affordable housing, but the folks that bought the lots on 3rd Street are going to build a home, and they get the lots for $3,000. So that, we talk about inflation, the cost of construction. So if anybody out there is looking for a spot to build a home, I think the land bank might be a place to start because that'll knock a lot off of the purchase price for the lots prices.
I think we're thrilled that someone's building a home,
Yeah.
home in Sandusky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, always am. Yeah.
Additional items of old business, Commissioners. Items of new business. Any items of new business, Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Murray.
need to ask that we set an executive session for the city manager. Employment.
In form of a motion? And a second? And a second? Been a motion and a second discussion? Ms. Myers, you call the roll on that motion, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Wantington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
That executive session is set. I believe this belongs under new business. I recently got a communication from Ann McGookie, the chairperson of Dolly Parton Imagination Library, through the Kiwanis, and she shared with me that once again, the state of Ohio's biennial budget has passed, ensuring that the Imagination Library will be funded for the 2024-2025 season. They appropriated $8 million for the Imagination Library contribution, and that, once again, refresh your memory, that covers 50% of that cost. They have continued to be successful with that program. Erie County is at 63% market penetration. Their goal is to get to 70. Can't get much further than that because people move in, people move out. So you're never going to get to 80, 90, 100%. But we're at 63%, and I think that bodes well for our kids and in the community. 200. Imagine this: 200 million books delivered since its inception in 1995. I think that can make a remarkable difference in young people's lives, and those young people turn into young adults, and then young adults turn into old adults like myself. So I think it's a great program, and as you all are aware, we passed legislation earlier this year to pick up a part of that cost for our kids, our resident kids in Sandusky. So thank you for that. Any additional items of new business?
Mr. Chairman, was that Imagine Library, was that a 3-year commitment on our behalf?
I believe it was a 5-year commitment.
5-year, and then the county was?
Partner with the county, yes.
Okay.
Our portion, I believe, was, and I'm working from memory, Mr. Reedy, you probably know, I think it was $44,000 over 5 years. I think it's $8,000 and change a year is what ours is. The county is considerably more than that, but then they're picking up the cost of every portion of every child in the county. So it's a good split. It's a good partnership. And thanks to the county for doing that too. Any additional items of new business? If not, are there any public comments on items that pertain to any city business?
Greetings, Commissioners and staff. Tom LaMarca, 206 48th Street. First things first, congratulations to John Arzak for being appointed to the city manager's position on full-time employment there. I think it was the right move on your part, Commissioners. You could have gone through that list and picked out someone that may have worked for a couple of years of on-the-job training, and then you would have been back to where you started from looking for someone else. So I think that was a great move. Thank you very much. And John, thanks for taking the call and taking the position. Disappointed to see Aaron Klein is not here. Maybe he's on vacation, well-earned vacation. But I've been on 48th Street about 18 years, I believe. And for the first 15 years, I didn't have a water problem. And I've been at this podium in the past. The last 3 years, I get flooded. And I'm tired of getting flooded. I'm getting too old to be cleaning up the mess and having the damage, the whole 9 yards. It's got to be an annual event, and I'm tired of it. I don't know why I have to pay for a check valve to be installed when it wasn't a problem in the past. Every time that the Columbus Avenue subway floods, then I'm going to get flooded. I mean, I can count on it. When I hear the scanner say subway's flooded, I might as well not go down in my basement until the next morning because I know what I'm going to walk into. I had Scott Cromer out to take a look at it along with Fox, and Fox put a camera down in my line. There was no cracked tile, there was no blockage in there, and what we've got is a force flow coming back into the house, and it comes up through the shower, the sump crock, the toilet. It's just a mess. I'd like a remedy. Somewhere there's a remedy other than a check valve, and I'm not the only one that's got the problem. Some people are afraid to come down here and address it with you, but as you know, I'm not afraid to come and do that. So please find a solution. I've had enough with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamarck. Additional comments from residents on any item pertaining to city business?
Hello, everyone. My name's Chad Wisby. I just moved to Sandusky on July 1st. Moved in with my girlfriend. We're expecting our first child September 28th. I'm actually Tom's neighbor. I'm here to talk about the flooding problem as well. A bit about my background. I've been doing fluid handling dynamics for 20 years. I'm concerned about the backup that I saw in my basement this weekend. It happened Friday night. I know we had a hell of a storm that night, what you would classify as a 1 in 10 year event. But what I'm concerned about is stormwater backing up into your basement is one thing, sanitary is another. So somewhere in the system, the stormwater mains were overwhelmed and backed up into the sanitary. What he's talking about, the overpass and the 6-inch vac assist pump that you have up there, if that is tied into that, if you can increase the capacity on that, would that have the ability to take that pressure out of the line so we don't overwhelm and supercharge the lines and go back into the residents' basements? I heard you talk a little bit earlier about the addition, or maybe it was the increased diameter of sewer lines. Was that correct when I heard you say that? There was a couple things I missed when you addressed that earlier.
I think it was in relation to other projects that were going on.
But and that might be. I'm brand new to Sandusky, so I didn't know the areas that you called out there, and I didn't know if that was one of them. Increased pipe diameter would take pressure out of the system. Like I said, with Tom, just moving into the new house, I've heard that this is a reoccurring event. I'm just curious what we're doing to solve the problem long term. And if, a short-term fix is actually increase the capacity of the pump that's at the overpass there to take pressure out of that when your storm lines are actually overwhelmed.
Yeah, I'll definitely pass this information on to the engineer and Public Works Director.
Mr. Chairman?
And if we could get, I know you identified your name, if you give us an address, other than you live next door to Mr. Lamarca, give us an address, that'll give us a route back to you.
I got you. It's 210 48th Street.
210 48th, okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Hang on, sir. Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Wolf?
Yes, sir. It sounds like you've dealt with these kinds of issues and have knowledge. May I recommend that he contact Mr. Klein and look at our system? Mr. Klein will share information with you, and from that, perhaps you can help talk about solving the problem.
Yeah, I would like to talk about
I'm sure
that.
he's smart, he understands, but it just expand the people involved and that know something about it. Perhaps you can give us some suggestions of what's going on.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Yes, and Tom can tell you how to do that.
I'll grab your information
There
after
you
the
go.
meeting. And
Perfect.
All right, I appreciate it.
Yep, sure.
Thank you.
Thank
Will
you.
Mr. Klein be back shortly?
I think he's off this week. So.
Okay.
Chairman.
Mr. Brady?
I would say only that the gentleman could interrogate this body all night, and he would find no additional information in terms of solutions or causes. But we have heard from Mr. Klein from time to time on this very issue. I know he's done some studies, had some outside folks do some studies. I don't remember the answers to those, but I'm sure he'll be happy to share them.
Excellent.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Meisner?
Since the gentleman who spoke was new, we've had combined sewers in Sandusky for 100 years. The line we talked about on Campbell Street, replaced tonight, was a combined sewage system, sanitary and storm. And what would happen during big events like this is all the sewage, storm, and everything would dump into the bay. So the EPA has now issued mandates, and we've got some time, but we've got to combine. Every major city along the lakes is doing that. That's where the green algae comes from and all that. But my opinion is we were a small town with small sewer lines, and urban sprawl throughout the area have added all of this. And I know the county goes around, does a smoke test through the gutters, make sure they're not draining their stormwater into the systems, but just the sanitary alone of all of this, the mall and all these areas that are building up, is still trying to get down through these old antique 90-year-old water or sewage lines. And I think that's one of the major impacts. Columbus Avenue definitely has those type things, but throughout the county, when it's all trying to get in here, and we built this big bladder system out at Amvex Parks trying to absorb some of that, and some was still spilling in the bay, but
No, I 100% agree. I mean, one of the things I look at, and I've worked with several cities around Ohio. I'm working with a bypass project right now in Ridgeville, Ohio. You can only fit so much volume through certain diameters of pipe. I mean, that's 100% the problem. The pumps at the overpass are addressing a lift station pump, which is designed to move fluid from a low point to the next stop, down the road in your line. My question about that specifically, and I don't have much experience with this, only by what I've heard from the community, when it floods there, we see backups in the neighborhood. My thinking is if you could increase the capacity at that lift station, and the pump that was out there that originally was helping with the paraffin wax cleanup several months ago or a year, but the capacity right there, you're only putting out from that piece of equipment there, it can only do 2,000 GPM with the system curves. So you can actually triple or quadruple that capacity for very little cost by just renting a larger machine to help move that pressure out of the line, is what I'm getting at. If that's truly where everyone is flooding, when that happens, when that bypass floods, then just increasing the size of that equipment could be a short-term fix until, other lines or pipe diameters are expanded.
We'll let Mr. Klein respond to that. I'll have returns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional comments from the public on any item? Seeing no one rush to the podium, we will move to executive session. Oh, shoot. How you doing, Chad?
Okay.
Return from executive session at 6:09. Gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Murray.
I move that we extend an offer to Mr. Orzak to hire him at $140,000 a year for a 3-year contract to be extended, of course, as he wishes, and we hope that he does, with a 6-month severance provision.
Second.
Been a motion and a second discussion. Mr. Harris, will you call the roll?
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Pajali?
Yes.
Mr. Waddington?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
That motion is passed. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned.